Hello, my name is Jeffrey Patriot, and I'm here to review two whiskeys from the great state of New Jersey. Whiskey number one from Sourland Mountain Spirits, based out of Hopewell, New Jersey, a bourbon whiskey aged for 6 months. And bourbon number two, whiskey number two, it is a bourbon, from Jersey Spirits Distilling Company, based out of Fairfield, New Jersey. It is what they consider a high rye bourbon, although they have not released their mash bill. In fact, neither has Sourland Spirits, and they are based out of Fairfield, New Jersey. Now let's get right down to business and start off with the 6-month product from Sourland Spirits. In fact, it is actually their first batch of this product. This is bottle number 118, and I don't know why they include this, but there's a little note, not sure if you can read it, but approved by founder Ray, and then I think it's Deutsch. I believe it's DISCH. Can't really pronounce that, not really great with names, but that is on there. I do not know the name of the master distiller. I know very little about this whiskey other than it is bottled at 45% alcohol per volume, 90 proof for the nerds in the audience, that it was aged 6 months in new American oak barrels, and that they describe it as a charming young bourbon aged perfectly to capture the smoky char from our hand-selected new American oak barrels, and that according to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcoholic beverages during pregnancy because of the risk of birth defects, and that consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive or operate machinery and may cause health problems. Oh, and I should add that the bourbon was made from locally grown corn and rye. I can't say from where, but it was local. And if you can detect a hint of annoyance and maybe sarcasm in my voice, it's there. There's not really a lot to go on from this company. You can't really find that much about them. The most I really knew about them before this, because I did not know about them, they were not on my radar at all, was that they produce a gin and a vodka and are known for their gin. And I'm not sure if that just characterized my experiences with this whiskey, but it is very much a cross between a heavy juniper gin and a whiskey that really deserves no credit, but Canadian mist. So if you can just sort of picture that, good luck, and try to get that flavor out of your head, because it's not good. And I'm not trying to be critical. When it comes to New Jersey and whiskey, I do not think there are a lot of options, but even if this was a year old, I feel like you would be able to get a lot more actual characteristics from the barrel than at 6 months. That it's kind of, it's sort of odd to rush this out at 6 months. Maybe it's just an experiment, but, craft kind of spirit companies really do take on a lot of fiscal responsibility, let's just say it. There's a lot of area for loss when it comes to craft whiskey specifically, in a way that there isn't with gin. And you can't find, or at least I can't for the life of me, find anything about this product on their website. Although I believe they do have an adopt a barrel program, although I could be confusing things between the two companies. But that is interesting, and if I was to, say, get involved with something like that, it would be very wise to wait on your product for at least, I would say, 3 years, if at all possible. In the finish, and I'm going straight to the finish because there's not really much up until then, there is a burst of cherry that I am now just getting that is very flavorful and is very in line with what bourbon is and what you traditionally would associate with bourbon. However, along with that, I don't really get anything close to a vanilla or caramel or really any note I would associate with a good whiskey, or at least a whiskey I like to drink. There's this kind of green funk, juniper kind of lingering, but this kind of dull flavor that is wearing the mask of alcohol, that just kind of lingers until cherry. And on the nose, it's very, very green, I would say. Raw leather, let's say, reminds me of products from Sourland Spirits, based out of Pennsylvania, although I'm forgetting the exact location of where they are located distillery-wise. But yeah, you could have said, oh yeah, this was a gin that was placed in a bourbon barrel that had bourbon for about 1 second. You know, it doesn't taste like whiskey, but more so it doesn't taste like bourbon. On that second kind of sip, I am getting more of the cherry up front. There isn't so much a hint of vanilla, but there's just a strain of something, maybe like vanilla extract, the alcohol kind of quality of it, which isn't a good flavor, it's just another flavor. And I am starting to get the impact of rye, the spice of it, to a minor extent. Not really getting any corn notes, which is somewhat disappointing, considering it is a bourbon. But there's that. I think there's a lot of potential here, because there's so much room for growth when it comes to New Jersey spirits, craft whiskey in New Jersey, and I think there's really nowhere to go but up from this. And I mean, a lot of the greats, you know, they either started by sourcing, or when they did put out their first batch of their own distilled product, they goofed up on the first round. Famously, I would say Wyoming Whiskey, they have a double cask, which is their normal bourbon, their normal small batch bourbon, aged in the new American oak barrels, and then finished in sherry barrels. The first batch just went totally awry of that, I believe. You know, and it's a great whiskey. So just because this one batch is a little overly green, a little overly sappy, let's say, with only dreams of cherry and vanilla, you know, one day it can be something truly great. It isn't currently. but it might be one day. And I will say this, I am a fan of the speckled artificial corks. They are something of a lifesaver, although one might not initially think that, because you can put a bourbon, you can put a whiskey down like that without risking damaging the cork so much. But now for a bit palate refresher. And to just sort of add a droplet of water. It's really taking its time, isn't it? And I am just going to let that sit as we move on to our next whiskey, which is a 1-year-old bourbon from Fairfield, New Jersey, also distilled and bottled in the great state of New Jersey, but this is at 42% alcohol per volume. It is by Jersey Spirits Distilling Company, and they consider it a high rye bourbon, although there is no legal definition of what constitutes a high rye bourbon, and I have no idea what the mash bill on this is, but it is definitely closer, I would say from my past experiences, to a bourbon. Really, I would say the bar is almost so low that I would just straight out say this is more of a whiskey than the Sourland Mountain product is. On the nose, it's a little perfuming. Almost like the smell of a hard caramel candy. I'm almost just kind of getting like rye grain on the nose. Dried spray paint. And a hint, not creamed corn, but like boiled corn that's been in water. Not the corn itself, but the water that the corn was soaking in. There is a dusty kind of must on the palate. There is definite corn. It's not really funky. You can get just a tinge of cherry. You definitely get some vanilla. Not really any wood note, which I would say is better than a funky wood note. It's kind of dry. Reminds me of the dryness on a product like Sierra Norte, which is a Mexican whiskey, which is also 6 months old, but is far more, I would say because of the heat, developed flavor-wise. And Jersey Spirits Distilling Company does in fact have a normal bourbon. I'm forgetting the name of it. Might be like Crossroads something. I know there's a cannon on the cover of it, on the front, on the for the artwork of it in the snow, kind of disheveled. But that product is not what they called high rye bourbon, and is 6 months old, and was bottled, I believe, at 45% alcohol as well. But just on the back, some information of history. The Ramapo Mountains in northern New Jersey were alive with the presence of the Continental Army Patriots during the Revolutionary War times. Due to a mostly Dutch occupation of the area, Patriots were not so concerned about loyalists to the British king and thus freely marched and conducted tasks within the towns along the Ramapo and Passaic rivers between West Point and Paterson. The trails and roads effectively became a route for supplies and moving troops and referred to as Cannonball Road. That might have been the name of their 6-month-old product. Between 1776 and 1781, the Cannonball Road was vital to the American war effort and forever a part of New Jersey history. The fact that many such trails existed in New Jersey inspired our co-founders to honor their collective testament to American resolve. Our Patriot's Trail Bourbon Mash Bill contains a substantial amount of rye, which gives it a noticeable spicy note. After fermenting a quality all-grain mash, it is carefully distilled in our 3-plate column still. A finely crafted 125 proof spirit enters new charred American oak barrels. Our master distiller determines its maturity and proofs to a final product. For more information, please visit us at www.jerseyspirits.com. And I do get I flounder over myself when it comes to reading large passages such as that, but the writing is fairly small, and I have a tinge, not exactly of dyslexia, but my eyes do somewhat go cross occasionally, so it is a bit difficult for me to read for long portions. This is batch number... I really don't know if it's M7B or C27D, and it is bottle number 53. From what I have seen by going on their website, there isn't really that much information. They definitely do brand themselves better. I love their logo, and then on the back you have a Revolutionary War soldier, and then a modern soldier, although the photo itself isn't rendered that well, I would say. It's kind of blurry. But yeah, between the two, I would definitely say that the better product is the Jersey Spirits Distilling Company one, the Patriot's Trail Bourbon. I'm not sure if it's because they're producing a better quality product or if it's just because they're aging it for longer. It's definitely far more peppery than the other product. Almost like a smoked paprika kind of note as well. And a bit in both of these of a, not tart, but I don't know if it's a not quite ripe grapefruit or if it's just a different kind of grapefruit, but a white grapefruit, the rind of it, that is oily. That kind of slightly bitter kind of quality with a sneaking sugar that is as sweet as it is unpleasant. That kind of note lingers in both of these products. And I will do a droplet of water in this as well, and I keep missing. And I think that got it. But who's to say? But just to briefly go back to the Sourland Mountain Spirits product. which has been sitting with a droplet of water in it. It's a little more vanilla-y on the nose. It just smells it smells more like Canadian mist right now. There's that grapefruit rind note. Little sweeter, brighter, metallic. Still with the green, funky leather, sap. So yeah, between the two of these, if you do have a chance, I would say go with the Jersey Spirits Distilling Company product, Patriot's Trail. Getting a full year on a product, specifically if you're not in an area like, let's say, I believe this is Arizona. Like, if you're not in Arizona, this is a 6-month-old product, just for color comparison. You know, they look about the same, but flavor-wise, this is just, it gets so many more points. It's so much more flavorful. It's less green and funky. And then, you know, there's this Texas, which, you know, Garrison Brothers, Balcones, you know, those products I definitely would recommend, even if they are younger than practically any other young whiskey. Because young whiskey, I would say, remains a gamble. And if you're feeling lucky, if you want to support some local distilleries and you're in the New Jersey area, definitely give these folks a try. I wish both of them nothing but the best of luck. And I hope to hear more from both of them, and really any distillery in New Jersey, because I'm excited to see where this whole New Jersey whiskey thing goes, if it goes anywhere. I know it won't be as big as Texas, but, you know, if we could have a company that produces something even half as good as Balcones Mirador, I would be fine with that. I believe we do. I think it's like Copper River, and they have a single run kind of series where I believe it's distilled beer essentially. But, you know, that is incredibly hard to find, but, you know, there's promise in New Jersey whiskey. But thank you for watching. Subscribe? ? I've been Jeffery Patron. You've been an audience member who left so many minutes ago. Have an excellent day. Or night.